Okay, so welcome to the Legal Aid New South Wales Law webinar on the Law Checkup. My name is Kerry Wright and I work in the Community Legal Education branch at Legal Aid New South Wales. I'm here today with Jessica McLaren, who's a civil lawyer in the Work and Development Order and Outreach legal team at Legal Aid New South Wales. Welcome, Jess.
Hi, thanks for having me. Hello, everybody listening.
We are broadcasting this webinar from Legal Aid New South Wales Central Sydney office. So before we start, I'd like to acknowledge and pay my respects to the Gadigal people of the Eora Nation, who are the traditional owners and custodians on whose land we're broadcasting from today. The purpose of this webinar is to inform community workers about the importance of legal health checking with their clients and to introduce you to our Law Checkup tool, which has been updated. As I just mentioned, it's about the importance of legal health checking. We're also going to cover why we need your help and how we can work together to get clients help with their legal problems. So Jess, can you tell us a bit about the types of legal problems that people can have?
I sure can, Kerry. We have family, crime and civil represented by these darling images. It's usually pretty easy to know what a criminal matter is because you're talking about the police being taken to court, being charged with an offence. Family is also pretty straightforward because we're talking about divorce, marriage, property, children. It also includes children being taken into care by Department of Family Community Services. When we talk about civil, though, it tends to be very broad and very hard to get a handle on unless you just use lots of different examples. So I usually say that it is basically everything that happens to you that's not crime and family. From the moment you wake up to the moment you go to sleep, you're interacting with civil law issues.
Okay.
So think of it as things that might be unfair or things where you have a right that somebody is stopping you from exercising. So it might be your landlord who won't fix the front door. It seems unfair that your landlord won't fix the front door, but it's actually you have a civil law right to live in a safe place and your landlord should be fixing your front door. It can be interactions with government departments, so Centrelink, complaints about police. It could be discrimination, immigration, human rights, fines, housing. It's a pretty long list.
Excellent, thank you. So what we thought now is to do a quick poll with you all, which is to see if you can spot civil law problems. So I'll just open that poll now. Okay, hopefully you can see that poll now. Which of these legal problems are civil law problems? You can choose more than one option. So the options are, I answered an urgent mobile phone call while driving, my son's ex won't let me see my grandkids, I've had my NDIS application rejected, I crashed my car into another car and don't have insurance, my boss sacked me because I complained about his son. So have we got people choosing options? Okay, so what we might do is close the poll now and share it with you all, see what answers people came up with. Okay, so Jess, what do we got? So 33% said they answered an urgent mobile phone call.
So this is actually a criminal offence, even though you get a fine and you can pay it online and it seems quite sort of informal, it is actually a criminal offence. However, when you have a fine, there are civil remedies for dealing with the fine, so it does kind of jump over into civil law a little bit.
Okay, so 50% said my son's ex won't let me see my grandchildren. Is that a civil law problem?
This one is a family law problem. I would be recommending someone see a family lawyer if they came in with that issue.
Okay, and then the next one, I've had my NDIS application rejected, so 67% said that was a civil law problem.
Yep, that is definitely a civil law issue, and Legal Aid has a NDIS specific team at the moment because we are getting so many questions about NDIS issues.
Yes, and we have a lot of webinars around NDIS issues as well, so
helpful.
Keep an eye out for those. 17% said, I crashed my car into another car and don't have insurance. It's a civil law problem. Is that a civil law problem?
It is. If you were doing some sort of a dangerous driving situation, there might be some criminal charges happening as well. But if the main part of the issue is that you don't have insurance, insurance issues are civil law problems.
Okay. And then finally, 33%.
Oh, actually, can I just correct that? If you didn't have your compulsory third-party insurance, then you might also have a criminal offence for that as well. So It does kind of go both ways.
Okay, so the criminal lawyers make referrals to the civil lawyers.
And vice versa, yep.
So lastly, 33% said, my boss sacked me because I complained about his son.
Yep. So anything to do with employment law is going to be a civil law issue. If the complaint about the son was, say, there was some sort of workplace harassment situation and there was an assault, then that might end up being a criminal law issue. But first port of call would be a civil lawyer to talk about an unfair dismissal claim.
Okay, excellent. Thank you. All right, so we now go back to the main presentation and we'll move forward. So Jess, why do we need community and health workers to do legal health checking?
The reason is we all found out from a study that was done by the Law and Justice Foundation in 2012 that there was a lot of things going on with people and their legal problems that we had always thought was probably happening, but now we know for sure. And it reveals pretty clearly that people have a significant amount of legal problems, and the more vulnerable you are, the more likely you are to have legal problems. So the survey interviewed over 20,000 people, so we got a pretty good sample size to get an idea about what was happening in the community. So the survey found that 50% of survey respondents experienced one or more legal problems in the 12 months prior to the survey taking place. 23% had 3 or more legal problems in that 12-month period. People with disability were likely to be more vulnerable to legal problems. Indigenous respondents, unemployed people, single parents, people living in disadvantaged housing, and people whose main income was government payments also had a higher prevalence of legal problems. And it also found that low levels of education and people from a non-English speaking background had the highest level of inaction for legal problems. So we know that we're all working with a group of people who are at a very high risk of having legal problems, having multiple legal problems, and probably not doing anything about it.
Yes, excellent. Thank you. So Jess, we're now going to do another poll with our webinar participants. And this poll is just asking the question, does your organisation do legal health checking with clients at intake or at other times when they're with your organisation? So if you want to let us know if that's a yes or a no, or you're not sure. Looks like everybody has answered the question. We'll share the results. Well, this is exciting, Jess.
Very good.
So 75% said yes and 25% said no. So hopefully the law checkup tool you can add to your toolbox as one of the tools to use to help identify if clients have legal problems. So we'll just hide that poll and go back to the main presentation and move forward. So Jess, what is this slide telling us?
Okay, so this is also from the law survey, and it asked people what their legal problems were, and they discovered some pretty interesting things. So the number one legal issue for people is consumer. So that is any time you are buying goods. So that could be goods or services. So maybe it's your mobile phone contract or your energy and water, or you purchase something from Kmart that's not working and then they won't give you a refund. All of this sort of thing. So insurance, banking, it's a huge area, and 21% is a lot of people.
That's right.
Number 2 is crime. So that is people who are victims of crime and have their personal property or themselves injured because of a crime.
Okay.
Number 3 is housing, which is public housing, private housing, problems with neighbours, having trouble keeping housing or getting housing.
Okay.
And number 4 is government. So fines is part of this, as well as Centrelink payments and issues with local government.
Okay. So 3 out of 4 of those are civil law problems, Jess. Okay, so what that's told us here at Legal Aid is that civil law problems are the most common in New South Wales. And what you'll also see on this slide is a picture of the video cover for the Legal Aid New South Wales production Law for Everyday Life, an introduction to civil law for community workers. This video was created after the law survey when we realised that civil law problems were so common in New South Wales and that many people weren't aware what civil law problems were. So the video is only 6 minutes long. We're not going to show it to you now, but you can watch it on the Legal Aid New South Wales YouTube channel. And in the email you receive after the webinar, there'll be a link to that. So have a look at that when you can. So Jess, I understand there's a strong connection between legal and health problems. What did the law survey find out from people about this link?
Okay, so one of the things that they were talking to people about is what are the health consequences of having unresolved legal problems. So what the survey found was that 29% of people had income loss and financial strain. 21% of people had a stress-related illness. 20% of people had a physical health issue. 10% of people experienced a relationship breakdown, and 5% of people ended up having to move home. So it's not hard to think of a situation where somebody has a lot of fines, has a lot of debt, has been ripped off by a few contracts that they've signed. Everything gets very stressful at home, can result in relationship problems, and then that's how you end up with the stress, relationship breakdown, and have people having to move.
Yes, exactly. So is that why dealing with legal problems early is important?
Absolutely. So what we know is that when civil law problems are left, they tend to just get worse. If you're thinking of a criminal matter where, you've been charged with something, eventually the police are going to pick you up and you're going to end up in court, and the system is just going to follow the path it always follows. But if we're talking about civil law problems, the consequences do just get much, much worse. And so there's actually a 2014 Productivity Commission Access to Justice report, which says that if left unresolved, civil problems can have a big impact on the lives of the most disadvantaged people. Unmet civil problems can also escalate into criminal matters. For example, you get a fine, you don't pay it, your license and registration gets cancelled, then you jump in the car anyway because you've got kids that need to get taken to school or medical appointments to keep, and police pull you over, and now you're being charged with driving an unregistered vehicle and driving unlicensed. Another issue to take into consideration is when we're dealing with civil problems, time limits are really important. So it might be that if somebody wants to use their legal rights to sue somebody, there is a time limit on that legal remedy, and if you miss it, sometimes there's absolutely no way to get it back. Other times it becomes a very lengthy process to try and make a extension of a limitation period. So should always be trying to act quickly to make it easier for the clients, but also to protect their legal rights.
Okay, thanks very much, Jess. We're trying to change the slide. Oh, here it comes. So why do we need your help? Meaning, why do we need the help of community and health workers, Jess?
Okay, so the reason that we need your help, and as a lawyer, I appreciate that I'm saying this to you, basically nobody wants to talk to us. So the survey found that only about 16% of people experiencing a legal problem will get legal advice. So if everybody out there is wandering around with, being a vulnerable person with 3 legal problems at a time and they're not coming to see a lawyer, then we know that we are having some trouble reaching the people we need to reach. But we also know that they're more likely to talk to health workers, financial advisors, community workers than they are to come to us. But we also know that about 50% of people won't seek advice from anybody, which is why it's so important that we are helping people to identify their legal problems and also helping them to get that legal advice.
Yes, definitely. So I guess that reinforces the critical role of health and community workers as gateways to our legal services.
Absolutely. So people trust you more than they trust us because we have a bit of a bad rap, even though we're really trying.
Yes.
But if they can trust you to help them to get the advice, then it makes it much easier for us to reach them and to give them the advice that they need.
Great, thank you. So I guess further on that issue, we'll talk a little bit about why don't people get help from lawyers. I think, well, as you've mentioned, Jess, people don't necessarily trust lawyers, and also many probably don't realise there's a range of free legal services available in New South Wales. What did the law survey find out about why people don't get help from lawyers?
Yeah, so things that we could probably guess at, now we actually know for sure what's going on. So 23% of people said that it was too expensive. So obviously they weren't aware of all of the free services that are out there. People said 16% said it was difficult to get through on a telephone. 11% said lawyers took too long to respond. 11% was too far away, too hard to get to, and 8% said difficult getting an appointment. So if we can bridge that gap with people by using the community workers that they're comfortable working with, and we can explain things like, it does sometimes just take a long time to resolve a matter. So if we can work together to make sure that they have some understanding of the legal system as well as their particular problem, then it can help to bridge some of these divides.
Okay, thanks, Jess. So now we're going to look at the law checkup. So there's a number of legal health check tools available for you to use, and I think was quite a few you were already doing legal health checking as part of intake or at different times. So one of the tools that you could look at, there's an online tool that community legal centres have, that's available at www.legalhealthcheck.org.au. But Legal Aid New South Wales has developed a paper-based tool called the Law Checkup. We're going to use this tool today to practice legal health checking, and a reminder that there's a copy of this in the handout section of your control panel, which you can download and have a look at when we're working through the form. So it's not just another form, it's designed to be completed with your client. We know how busy you are, so it shouldn't take more than 5 to 10 minutes. You just need to tick a box if your client answers yes to any of the questions about legal problems provided under each legal problem type heading. Each problem type also has an icon next to it to assist clients with low literacy skills to understand which types of problems you're talking to them about. And after answering the questions, the form asks the client which legal problem they'd like help with first. This will help you decide which legal service to refer to, particularly if they have more than one legal problem type. The form also includes a section for the client to consent to you making the referral to the legal service you decide to make an appointment for them at. And that consent also allows our lawyers to get back to you. As Jess was saying, sometimes we need your help to help the client address some of the legal problem, the things that are required to resolve the legal problem. So now we'll move on to a client story. So let's think of this typical client story. You've opened up your centre, you're putting out signs for your free lunch that day when a client walks up and talks to you about the stresses in their life at the moment. You make them a cup of tea and sit with them inside where it's warm. It sounds like they have a few problems which might be legal problems. You ask if they mind doing a law checkup with you and find out if so, they agree. So you can use your copy of the Legal Aid New South Wales Law Checkup form that you've just downloaded from the handout section and follow us as we go through it. You'll also notice, and I think I mentioned at the beginning, that there's a tool for workers with young people under 18 years of age, and there's also a copy of the statewide service referral list there for you to look at. So all of these documents are also available on the Legal Aid New South Wales website. We have a law checkup page, and there'll be a link to that in the email you get after the webinar. So Jess, let's have a go at going through this form.
Okie dokie.
Do you want to have a go
at
that?
So we're going to make this into a little highlighter here. Or a pen here so I can tick a few things as we go. So I would probably start by saying, I've got this form, let's just go through a few things so we can cover off all the bases. Okay. And then if we identify a few issues for you, then we can figure out what the best way is to resolve your problems. Okay, so the first one you can see is about money. So have you got any fines at the moment?
I have got some fines because I got caught on the train the other day and I didn't have my concession card and the guy gave me a fine. And also my son who lives with me, he keeps using my car and he parks wherever he likes and I keep getting fines in the mail.
Okay, so we've got a few issues there with fines and we can make a plan to resolve those ones. We might give Revenue New South Wales a call to start with.
Okay.
Okay, so have you got any other debts or loans or anything that anyone's after you for money for that? Okie dokie. How about consumer law issues? So this is things where you've bought something or have you signed a contract and you can't pay back something, anything like that?
No.
Okie dokie. How about Centrelink? Are you on Centrelink?
No, I get a veterans payment.
Okay. How about any issues with disability? No, that's all good. How about housing? Have you got somewhere to live?
Yeah, well, I live in social housing and with the local community housing provider. But I've got problems because my neighbours keep complaining about my son's dog. He barks all night when the possums come over the fence. Right, okay. So maybe a neighbour might be going to make a complaint against you or something. So we might have a talk about what your options are to deal with that. I've also asked my son to move out because I am worried that housing might evict us. They've threatened me previously and they've been really rude to me because I've asked for their help to repair stuff in the house and they won't do anything, and so I've just stopped asking them. Right, okay. So we've got housing. I'll just tick this one, but we're talking about repairs. Sure. Okay. How about, are you worried about violence at the moment? Is there anything that's anyone who's threatening you or any issues like that? Well, just that my son, he's a bit negative all the time, and when I asked him to move out, he wasn't very impressed with that, and I'm not sure whether he's I don't really feel physically threatened, but he's definitely angry, and who knows what might happen.
Okay, so we might just put a tick there because it is, you know, it's not nice to have to be dealing with that, so that might be something we can have a look at. So this one is about children and kids in care. So you said you've got your son at home. Have you got any other children?
No.
Okie dokie. And so this one's a family law question.
No.
Probably we're okay with that one. Discrimination and harassment, aside from the neighbours maybe. Anything else?
No, it's only the neighbours.
Okay. How about any mental health issues? Trustee and guardian, have you ever run across them? Nothing like that?
No.
Okie dokie. How about any complaints about government departments or the police?
So does the the people who own my home that I rent from, do they fit in there?
So I think we will put that up in housing,
right.
as because that's would probably be a little bit different, but I think we'll stick with that as housing.
All right.
Yeah, I think we've covered that one now though. Okay, so next page. How about employment? Have you got you're not working because you've got your veterans? Okie dokie. How about wills and estate things? Have you ever wanted to get a will but you're not sure about it?
Well, I do have a will which has my son as the person who looks after my stuff after I die. And I'm not really sure about that, so I would like to change that. So I'm not sure what to do.
That's okay. So that would be something that you could talk to a solicitor about, redrafting your will. Okay, how about, what have we got? Older people. We've sort of covered that in the other ones. Living arrangements, not feeling quite safe. Has your son taken any of your money or anything like that?
Not that I'm aware of. I mean, he always takes my car, and as I said, I keep getting all these fines. But he hasn't actually removed it or anything.
Okay, okie dokie. So anything with the police? They bothering you at all?
No.
Have to go to court for anything? Okie dokie. Anything to do with immigration?
No.
So there's a question here about veterans. So are you happy with the payment that you're getting, or do you have any concerns about that?
Well, I did get a letter from Veterans Affairs recently about my pension, and I'm not really sure what it says, and I may end up, I'm just really worried that they may cut it off. So
okay. Well, let's put that one on the list as well. Okie dokie. So then we've got a question here about all the things that we've just ticked, and we've talked about. What do you think is the thing that you're most worried about?
Probably my pension.
The pension?
Yes.
Okay, so why don't I just do a little arrow? There we go. That's the one that we're most concerned about. So aside from popping in here today and talking to us, do you get support from anybody else?
One of the veterans groups visits me once a week. I also get Meals on Wheels. So, there's a few people. Okay, so I'm just going to do some little drawing here. Not super easy with this mouse. That for veterans. And if we were going to talk to a lawyer about all of these things and I was going to make a referral for you, is there anything else that you think a lawyer or someone might want to know about your situation that we haven't already talked about? No, I think that's probably it. Okie dokie. So this part is a consent. So if you're happy for me to find a solicitor who'd be able to help you with these things, is it okay if I talk to them about what you've told me and that they can get in touch with you? Yes. Okie dokie. Thanks. So we'll just fill out this section. Okay. So thank you, Jess. No worries. try and go back to what we had. I think we're right. So, so hopefully you found that us running through the law checkup useful. We're now going to do another poll with you to get some feedback. What this poll question is, now that you've, after this exercise and you've seen the law checkup in action, can you think of a client where this would have been a helpful way to work with them? Yes or no is the options. Looks like everybody has answered, and looks like everybody said yes.
Excellent.
That's great. Thank you very much. Okay, so now we'll just move on to the next section of the webinar. So when Legal Aid New South Wales provides the law checkup training to service providers, we leave behind a local services referral list. So you can find a service that can assist with your client's legal problems. And this, the statewide list is on our website, but when we run it locally with services, we usually update that to include the contacts for your local legal aid office, your local community legal centre, your local tenancy service, and any other services that are relevant to the types of legal problems that might be prevalent in your area. Of course, if you're not sure who to refer to, the best place to go is Law Access New South Wales. You can call them on 1300 888 529, and they'll help you find a suitable local service to match the legal needs that your client has. So when you've completed the law checkup with your client and worked out which legal problems they'd like to deal with first, make an appointment for your client. Provide the client with the appointment details, and it may be necessary for you to take them to the appointment or another support worker. Let the legal service know if the client has any special needs, such as needing an interpreter, a telephone appointment, or a support worker or carer to attend with them. We do recommend these warm referrals wherever possible, particularly if your client is anxious, dealing with a lot of problems, or has complex needs. So this means that you contact the legal service and make the appointment on their behalf. Also, because some legal advice services are provided as drop-in clinics, it's a good idea to call the local office to get more information about how the drop-in clinic works, so you can explain that to your client as well, that you can't make an appointment, but this is the way that you get that advice. So then, to complete the law checkup, the front page is where you write down where you referred the client to and your contact details, the full details of the client. You may be able to scan and email this through to the legal service, so check that with them if that's an option. Otherwise, give the law checkup to your client to take to their appointment, and keep a copy on your file just in case it goes missing. Okay, so I think we're nearly at the end of the webinar. So we're just going to do one final poll before we finish up. And what this poll says is, do you feel more confident doing legal health checking after this webinar? Yes, no, or unsure? Okay. Looks like people are thinking about it. Okay. So
lovely.
like the majority of you said yes, but some not sure. And I should say that we can always come out to your workplace and explain the law checkup in more detail with the team. So that's always available on our web page. I'll just change the slide to talk a little bit more about that. So on our website, you can you'll find both the law checkup, client referral form, the statewide services referral list. There's also a request to talk online form. So that's the form you can fill out and submit, and then we can get the local legal aid office to come and talk to you and your team about the law checkup. You can also sign up for our Law for Community Workers alert newsletters, and of course you can also order a publication. Any of these resources or requests come to the Community Legal Education branch here at Legal Aid New South Wales. So our email address is cle@legalaid.newsouthwales.gov.au. So you can always get in touch with us that way as well. So just a reminder that when we finish broadcasting, you'll receive an email with a feedback survey link. And then about an hour after we finish, you'll also get an email with links to the Law Checkup resources and the Law for Everyday Life video. So I'm just wondering, we haven't had any questions yet. Does anybody have any questions? There's still a few of you online. I can answer those if anyone does. Doesn't look like it. So thank you, Jess, for your help with this webinar, and thanks everyone for participating in this webinar. We'll see you at our next Law for Community Workers webinar.
Lovely. Thanks, Kerry. Thanks, everyone.
Bye.
Bye.